Hi, and welcome back to Cosmic Currents. This is a podcast about surfing, spirits, and stories. I'm Leah. I'm a women's empowerment mentor, a yoga instructor, and a surf enthusiast. And really, what I've come to realize is that mostly what I do is hold space, whether that's in a yoga class, on a mentorship call, on a retreat, in a reflection session, or in a ceremony, or just sometimes sitting around a kitchen table drinking coffee. And what I hope to be able to offer you with this podcast is a space for you to let yourself indulge in a way of thinking and feeling that might at first seem impractical or even illogical, and just kind of explore possibility. So if you find this type of content, these conversations, or these practices interesting and are curious and want to go a little deeper, maybe start to incorporate them into your life in a more meaningful way, you can check out my mentoring options online at leadonatello.com. I will leave you the link in the show notes. There are private and group options available. And in November, I'm going to be hosting a surf and yoga retreat here in Loitos, Peru, where I live, if you're interested in that. So today we are talking about relationships, and more specifically with the natural world. So if I were to ask you, what is your relationship with surfing and the ocean like? What would you say? If you don't surf, you can pick something else that you do in nature. But when I think about it, my best surfs have been the ones where I feel the most connected to the ocean, where I'm not so in my head, like thinking about, is it too big? Is it too powerful? Are there too many people? Is the water too cold? Are the waves too small? Like all of those things. The best surfs I've had are the ones where I feel mostly comfortable, maybe a little challenged, or I can like practice something that I don't usually get to practice and it works out, or yeah, like you get maybe a little bit of that, like, oh, can I do this? Can I not? But you also feel safe, or I also feel safe and confident. And at the same time, I'm not really even focusing on those things. And it's just kind of after now reflecting on it that I'm realizing those are the best surfs I've had. And it's just this feeling of like trust and flow. And it's like when I set myself up to paddle for a wave, I just know that I'm going to get it. Like I just know I'm going to pop up right, or there's nobody in the way, and it's all just flowing together. It's easy. Or when I duck dive, I just know I have the right timing. I'm not going into it like, oh, am I going to like lose my board, or is it crowded? Like it's just somehow there's just this harmony with me and the ocean, and everything is just working out. And I also realized I start to get disconnected from my surfing when the conversation in the water maybe gets too technical, like about the conditions or the size of the boards, and that sort of thing. And I don't know, I really have realized recently that that's just like not for me, not into that. And so relationships involve at least two people or two participants. So that means if we have a relationship with the ocean and surfing, both of us are making offerings. Both of us are participating. And the ocean offers waves, offers the conditions, it offers the temperature of the water, the size, the power. And she's also offering you teachings if you're listening. So like I mentioned in episode 1, some of my biggest and first teachings were about self-esteem and self-confidence. And I think I mentioned this also, but when I first moved to Peru, I knew I wanted to surf, but it took me a pretty long time. And even that time in between where I was still kind of figuring it out and wasn't really in lessons and thought it would just come to me, and I was just floating around and often was pretty down on myself because I was like, you've been here so long and you still can't surf and blah, blah, blah. I always felt like it's like I felt this calling or this pull, and this longing to learn. And I used to describe it as though it was like me wanting to learn, and me like just I'm almost like forcing it, or holding on to this dream, this idea. And now I think that it was more so like she was pulling me in. I think that was the start of our relationship. Like she was still holding space for me and calling me in and guiding me into this relationship with her. And it's almost weird to hear myself talk and speak like this, because if you've ever been around people who talk about plant medicine, ayahuasca, they'll say like, you'll feel a call, you'll know it's your time because she'll call you. The medicine will call you. And what they're referring to is the spirit of the plant, basically initiating a relationship with you, inviting you into their world. And the way I see it and feel it, like the world around us is alive and it's a guiding force and it's communicating with us all the time. Now, there's this common saying that the best surfer in the water is the one having the most fun. And honestly, I don't really know about that because a lot of people can have fun at the expense of other people, whether they mean to or not. Probably a conversation for another day. But the surfers that I see who really enjoy it are the ones who are just there to experience the water. They have this deep connection with the ocean. And it's like when you're out there and you just get this feeling like, oh, I'm going to go sit over here in this other section, and then this beautiful wave comes right your way. And it's like, where did that feeling to go sit there come from? I love it when people just express their gratitude to just be in the water, like not expecting the ocean to just pump out waves like it's some kind of machine or provide them the perfect conditions for the maneuver that they want to practice that day. Like, that's not what the ocean is about. The ocean, like the universe, I think will give you what you need. And sometimes it'll just give you what it feels like. But whether that's to be like tossed around like a rag doll and just to knock some humility into you or to scare you just enough that you remember how small you really are in a good way. You know, she might send you just little nothing waves that you have to work really hard to catch. And then she sends you the perfect set. And when you catch one of those, it feels easy and effortless. And it only feels that way because you've already put in the time and you've surfed all these other imperfect conditions beforehand. And, you know, in the sessions before. And a little sidetrack, but, you know, like everything always adds up when you're surfing. Even if you're learning and you go out there and you just feel like you're not catching anything, you're not popping up properly, you're always in the wrong place, you're just getting smashed, like everything adds up. Every time you go in the water, you are learning something. And just because you can't do it, just because you're not popping up properly, does not mean that the sport is not for you. This lifestyle is not for you. This practice isn't for you. This is something that you have to work for. My dog's drinking water, and I'm just going to keep going. So after so many years of living at the beach and surfing, and even before that, like longing to surf, this is my entire experience of surfing. And it is honestly one of the most important relationships I have in my life. And living consciously in relationship with the natural world, putting it mildly, has changed my life. And now you might be wondering, like, how does this even happen? How does one, how do you just go from surfing being like this sport where you're constantly challenged to it being this like relationship? How does that even start to happen? And I mean, I think I kind of explained that when I mentioned about how, you know, this longing, this pull, this feeling. But one thing that I actively did, and I did not know that it was going to lead to this, was in 2022, I spent about 20 days in the jungle and I participated in a dieta. And this is a process where you basically diet different medicinal plants to receive their healing benefits, and you dedicate yourself to this process and to this plant. And in doing so, you start to cultivate a relationship with the plant. So essentially the spirit or the essence of the plant. And in order to experience this connection, you dedicate yourself. You are giving your plant that time, you're giving it space, physically and energetically. And this also means you're also only consuming a little bit of other foods and water and stuff, and it's all unsalted and unseasoned, and you're not engaging much with other people. You're not consuming in other ways. So like you're not reading or not reading much, or listening to music. It's a little different for everybody and in how strict they want to be. You know, you're not putting on a bunch of products. You're brushing your teeth with coconut oil. You're not washing your hair. And everyone does this in a slightly different way, obviously. But anyway, that could be a whole episode on its own. The idea behind this is that this process is a complete redirection of energy and can be incredibly healing. And one beautiful aspect of it is the boredom. It's where you're just spending hours in your casita, your like little, your small house, your like wherever you're staying, and you have nothing to do except watch nature. You just sit there in the hammock and experience the world. You can see throughout the times of the day how the plants change and what you're just so much more aware of life happening around you. And it's interesting because I remember being in Dieta and thinking like the whole world is just out there and everyone's just like going about their lives and that's reality. And then it's like, no, that's not reality. Like this is also a reality. And obviously everybody has their own realities and both are true, right? Like both are reality. The natural world has its own reality. And it's so, so special to have that time to just connect to it. And since then, just like any other relationship, the one I have with the ocean and the natural world is one that I have to nourish daily. And so for me, that looks like going for walks, taking mindful breaths, being present, being quiet, listening, observing, giving offerings, admiring, listening for feedback, basically all the things you would do in any other relationship. And it's interesting because people will often be like, I don't really get why you would stay in one place for so long. I've lived in a small town in northern Peru for 11 years. Besides going home to Canada, I've done very little travel in this time for some personal reasons. And like traveling hasn't always been an option. And right now I just don't have the ambition to travel. I feel like being here and nurturing this connection is really what I'm supposed to be doing. It's very fulfilling. And it's kind of like finding a partner or a friend, having a friend who just like makes you happy and you can be yourself. And I really think it's important to treasure those connections and not just discard them. And I'm not saying that leaving Lobitos would be discarding the relationship completely. Like it's not quite that literal. But I really believe in giving value to what you have and to show gratitude, appreciate it, nourish it. Like if something adds value to your life, like hold on to it. Um Another really beautiful aspect of this is that when you have a relationship with the natural world around you, you don't feel alone. You are always accompanied. And, for those of you who do travel a lot, the natural world is the natural world, and spirits, they're not stuck in a box. Like they're not just or like stuck in one tree or, one part of the ocean. The ocean is the ocean, the moon is the moon, the sun is the sun. Like it's the same everywhere. And spirits can always find you. If you've worked with plants in the jungle, those plant spirits can recognize you anywhere. And I believe that it's just up to you to continue to nourish that relationship that you started. And so, I don't know, maybe at this point you're like, why do any of this? What is the point? Like, why even think about the world in this way or interpret the world in this way? And I think it's because when I think about, or not think about, it's an experience. When I experience the ocean this way or the natural world in this way, it feels like that this is what life is about. Life is about meaningful connection, intimate relationships, cosmic connections, and they make the experience of living better. They make it more meaningful, more insightful, more joyful. And it's not about proving your worth or needing to be something for someone. It's just simply existing in relationship. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you think relationship is boring. Like eventually it all becomes mundane, uneventful, but really, like life is just made up of moments. And they're mostly mundane, simple moments. It's like in surfing, how it's like 95 to 98% paddling and the rest is riding waves. Like the waves are like the big moments in life. They're exciting, they're the highlights. But like, have you ever had an injury that makes paddling super uncomfortable and then you just really start to realize how important it is to feel comfortable while you're paddling around and how much time you actually spend doing it? Because we spend so much more time on the mundane stuff like paddling and the in between these big moments in life, in between the big events, in between the trips, in between, I don't know, the promotions or whatever it is. Like, we spend a lot of time like, I don't know, having meals or in our homes or taking care of our animals or our children. And the mundane doesn't feel quite so routine when you're present with the world around you. It's like if you go for the same walk every single day, or you sit in that casita every single day, you're going to notice the changes in the natural world around you. You're going to notice life happening, and you're part of that. And it's the same when you surf the same wave all year round. You inevitably become so familiar with it that you notice the subtle shifts in the sand, in the beach, in the reef, in the current, in the temperature. And your relationship with that place will deepen if you're paying attention. And if you allow yourself to open up, if you allow yourself to feel the presence of the ocean, to experience her, you might just start to get to know her. A friend once introduced me to this really beautiful and simple way to connect to the ocean. She said, as you walk in, just run your fingers through the current and ask the ocean to be gentle with you. And, I often see people making the sign of the cross as they enter for a surf, and I assume that they're asking for protection. And that's obviously fine, and to each their own. And I also wonder if those same people ask the ocean herself for protection. This concept came from a friend. Her name was Nix. She had a very deep relationship with the ocean. You could just feel it. She passed away from breast cancer in 2021, and we never actually met in person. She was a speaker at an online event that I hosted, and she made such a difference in my life. And I only knew her for a few months, and and only through the internet. But she had this piece of writing, I think, on her website or somewhere. So I'm going to read it to you because I think this is where I want to leave you. She said, fearlessly show up for yourself. Identify and raise your standards. Cover yourself in love and play, and in doing so, you allow others to do the same. And so the whole vibration of the world rises as we meet each other authentically. And I ask you, who are you to deny the world your most playful, joyous self? You must shine your gifts onto this world. We all need each other's gifts. That's our highest calling. Show up for you to show up for everyone. So I will leave you with that. And I think that these relationships we're cultivating with each other and with the natural world are a huge part of life. Like I said, they make life more meaningful, more joyful. And they give us purpose without having to put on, you just exist. You don't have to put on a show. You don't have to be something you're not. You don't have to show up in a way that somebody expects you to. You just get to be you. And I love Nick's words because she's just saying that. She's just saying, just be yourself. And that it would be a shame if you weren't, because you would be denying the world your true authentic self. And that's all we really are asked to be. So yeah, I will leave it there. Thank you for listening, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what other sorts of stories or topics you're interested in. And if you are interested in working together, coming on a retreat, just send me an email, or you can check out the website. All right, buenas soles, and talk to you soon.